Welcome everyone to the MISHRM Resource Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Coyne. Look forward to having another great podcast with you all with another great guest. Today, we have Shazia Siddiqi, who is the CEO of Let's Art About It. And there are a couple key things that I want you to be aware of when I'm giving you her bio. She's not only the CEO of a company, but she also is board certified as an art therapist. She also has been licensed as a professional counselor. She has 2 master's degrees, one in clinical mental health counseling, as well as in art therapy. And on top of all of those things, she's also an adjunct professor at Wayne State University. So without further ado, Shazia, welcome aboard today. Great to have you.
Thank you, Greg. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are as well. And so why don't we just get you started with a simple question, because I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are kind of curious. What is Let's Art About It all about?
Well, Let's Art About It. What we do is we help adults who are overwhelmed, maybe fatigued by Zoom, feeling burnt out, feeling anxious, depressed, and often missed by traditional forms of talk-based therapeutic interventions, which is around 45% of individuals who might have clinical level mental health challenges but aren't seeking professional help. And so we help all these individuals and especially employees of organizations. We help them cope with their stress. We help them manage change and uncertainty. We help them engage their senses, discover their passions, connect and build lifelong skills with one another on a deeper level through our virtual as well as in-person art therapy and IO psychology informed workshops that are fun and immersive experiences. So that's a little bit about what we do. That's the core of our work.
I love it. Wow, that's a lot. And there's a few things in there that I'll go back and touch on. One of them being skills, but another, I have to think of this. And we've talked before as both being resource partners and understanding a little bit more about what you do. But before I had a conversation with you and really dug into what is your core business, I got the sense that it's probably not just me, but there's others that have a lot of misunderstanding about art therapy and Let's Art About It. So what do you feel is probably the most common misunderstanding of what you're doing?
Probably the number one misunderstanding is that art making is for those who are artistic. So when you were 5 years old, probably didn't feel this way when you were going at it with your crayons, right? Probably
Right.
not. So we never told ourselves at that time, we never told other people, I can't draw or I'm not good at art. We would color freely and it was glorious, right?
Yeah, it was.
Right. So the thing is that we learn to think of art as something for a select group of people because, maybe we weren't praised for our creations, or maybe someone told us that it didn't look good. But the thing is that that mindset actually prevents us from benefiting from the superpowers of art making that can be unleashed for every one of us to help us heal and to help us grow.
Man, that is profound. And you're right. I mean, I know for one, as a kid, loved to draw and color and, be a kid. That's what art was all about. But I know as I got older, it wasn't such a staple in my life, I would say. Some kids, sometimes we'll tease each other about art, how good it is, maybe not so, or how not so good it is. So let me ask, I'm sure there's probably some research that's based in some of this art therapy to make people or help people understand where they're going, what they want to accomplish, and get almost, it's part of the wellness movement. What is some research based in, for some people based in fact that they'll want to see outside of just being able to draw on a paper? What does it bring to the table?
Well, I would say the main thing is that when we're making art, it can articulate what words can't. It brings these complex thoughts and feelings into a more manageable and more understandable, like bird's eye perspective. So we're seeing things about ourselves that we might not have been able to see, like if we were simply trying to write down thoughts like in a journal, or like to talk to someone about like how we're feeling. So what happens is like there's a lot of research. So one is that we're accessing our brain's visual cortex. So this is like when we're drawing, like we're actually tapping into the side of our brain that sometimes we don't have access to. And this is like where all of our memories of ourself are stored, like our strengths, our passions, that you might have tucked away over time. So when we're about like 7 or 8 years old, we tuck away these parts of us because, again, we weren't like acknowledged for them, or maybe we were shamed for a part of ourselves. And so what art does is like it actually transcends like all like logical and linear thinking, and it gives insight into our personal strengths that can actually help us when we're feeling stuck or feeling powerless or really like overwhelmed. So that's one thing. Another is that we're actually activating the reward pathways in our brain when we are engaged in art making. So even people who are terrified of art making, say if like you feel, okay, you know what, art making, like I'm not good at it and I'm scared. I just, sometimes people are afraid of actually like picking up some art supplies and making something with it. So even if you have those fears, if you just do it, you will still feel good and you'll still have a pleasurable experience. And so this can be beneficial for people with dealing with all kinds of like health issues, because it actually like activates, that activation of your reward pathways in your brain. Like it can actually help with issues such as like, addictive behaviors, like eating disorders, mood disorders, all kinds of things. So those are a couple of things, once we're immersed in the art making process, like we're triggering a flow state, which is a state of optimal engagement, which has first been identified in artists, like where you're fully present in the moment, like you're just making the art. And you're activating several networks, like including like your relaxed, reflective state, your creativity, mindfulness, improved cognition, focusing on a task, and all these things like can be like very neurochemically rewarding. And you can actually notice like there's a reduction in your cortisol hormone, which is like your stress making hormone. So studies show that your cortisol can actually decrease by up to 25% in like visual art making. Wow. So, and of course there's all kinds of other physical benefits. You can reduce your blood pressure and like inflammation, and you can bolster your immune system, and you can improve your brain cognition. So there's a lot of benefit in the work we're doing that's all like compact into this like package of this like fun art workshop for your employees or for your teams.
I love it. And there's a couple things that you mentioned earlier, because look, flow is fantastic if you're in that zone, and being able to lower blood pressure and lower cortisol levels that are basically point to high levels of stress. I also know this: human nature is, well, that's all well and good, but some of the things you mentioned, fear, being scared, doing some of those things, like I happen to be a guy, and there are probably some men watching this show that are like, art, yeah, whatever, or it's all well and good, but I don't want to be drawing. All right. How do you deal with some of those things? Because fear is a very big motivator, both for a positive thing and sometimes for a not so positive thing. So how do you handle that?
Honestly, it's about just allowing yourself to just try something new. I think that is like probably something we struggle with a lot, is just like trying and just like kind of having that courage to just be like, you know what, I know that there's benefits behind this. Like I work with a lot of like engineers and people like in tech, and like people who want to know like how something is going to benefit them before they engage in it. So I think that to overcome those fears, one is like just to be like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. And then number two is actually like showing people this research. So when we work with like different companies, we always like provide this research ahead of time, so that people who are thinking about, attending like this workshop or being a part of it, they have an opportunity to look at that and see like how it can actually help them and benefit them. And I think that can often like alleviate that uncertainty of like what is going to happen, like when we are creating within like this workshop.
I love it. And one thing that I feel like would be important before we go any further, it's speaking of taking a step out, being adventurous. Right behind you is this plentiful, colorful wall of yours. So what I want to find out a little bit more is too, and I'm sure our viewers do, they're like, what is all that? So before we continue on this path, I also want to find out about the head wraps. Tell us a little bit about that and how it all came to be.
Actually, this is so interesting. I actually did not purchase all of those scarves behind me. So they are like scarves that I wear. And I mostly got them as gifts. So since I was a young teenager, 16 or around 15, 16, like people, knew that I was wearing a headscarf. So they would always think that was a nice gift to give me. So over the years, decades, actually, I built up this like collection, and they're so special to me. I feel like each scarf has this like story to it, whether it's the person who gave it, just the circumstance of like why they gave it to me. They each have the story. When I see it together, I can just like see how, I have a lot of gratitude for my life and see like how abundant my life has been. And I think also just having these in the background is nice because it sort of is a point of connection to people ask questions like you are about what this means. It's kind of my own personal expression. And it's so interesting because I do a lot of like diversity inclusion work, like art-based, like diversity inclusion training. And we'll talk about that, like, some of the things that we do, but part of I was like, talk about these because these are sort of like being able to tell my story about these and like why they're important to me. It just builds like that connection. I think during this time, like when we're all on Zoom and pretty much like all back on Zoom because of just, with like the coronavirus situation, having these like points of connection, things that we can connect on, like on different levels can be like important for us, like for our growth and for our health.
I couldn't agree more, Shazia. And to get back to what we were talking about, you talked about skills and you talked about some of the organizations that you've helped through your time running this company. It's pretty amazing hearing the stories and talking with you about it. And so the company's coming to you and looking as Let's Art About It for an opportunity to help their teams. What are some things that you can do? I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about it, but maybe give an example of what it might look like. Because I know that people will say they'll lean into it, so to speak, for the fun part, but the skills part that you mentioned is a real benefit that I don't know if all of our listeners and viewers really know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and honestly, I like to tell people that there is an art, a fun way to like a component to like anything. Like you can pretty much build any kind of skill using art. So what we do is like, we just bring in art to do basic things. So I actually have partnered with like an organizational psychologist and clinical psychologist. And like what we do is like we actually take like researched areas. So for example, we take like core components of resilience, for example, like, so some of those can be emotional regulation, adaptability, having like a challenge orientation. So we take those like researched components that are researched in the field of biopsychology, and then we create like interventions using like art making and art therapy to help build and train like those specific areas. So we're not only like, tapping into like the research within art therapy, we're also tapping into like these other modalities too, to create like the best like training experience and skill building experience for participants. So resiliency is one of them. The core components of like building cultural competency, emotional intelligence, leadership effectiveness. Like, we have an assessment for that. And we can actually also train like within that area as well. So there's like a lot of research that goes into just like the development of like each of the interventions that we come up with. And we also make sure that these aren't things that are, it's just, a lot of people think that, oh, we're just coming and having this event, this one-time thing that's going to be fun. We're going to learn something. It's not just that. We are actually giving you like tools that you can use for the rest of your life. So what we teach, like these art making skills, you can actually continue to use them forever. Like you can use them on and on to help you, cope with the various challenges that, we create the workshop for.
Here's the thing then. So, I mean, this sounds amazing, and I want to give you a chance to talk about it, but you talked also about being remembered. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, you started this amazing company for a reason. All right. And so if I were to ask you what you wanted to be remembered for, whether it be this with this company or with the impact that you're able to have with the companies that you're helping, what would you want? What's the one thing you want to be remembered for?
I would want us to be remembered for, just being like really extra and like over the top and like what we're doing, and just really deep diving and like looking at every little angle of like how we can help a person like in our process. So we don't want to do just like random art making just because it feels good, it relieves your stress. We want to be remembered for actually like putting all of like the research into like what we're doing, and also like making that known to the people that we are working with. And yeah, we just want people to feel like leave our workshops feeling like transformed. So we hope that we can be remembered for that, like being able to provide like transformational experiences for people who are part of our workshops, and just help them feel like extra special too.
I love it. I love it. So let me ask then too. A lot of people are probably wondering about, all right, we've got this great experience, but we want to be able to make, our environment, whether it be the personal or professional standpoint, a better place. So if there is one thing or one tip that you can leave our audience with today with regards to making their world, whatever that is, a better place, what would you give them?
I would say helping people let go of their self-judgments. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that these often start around like age 7, and so like letting go of these and allowing and just being like your authentic selves. So I love people just going beyond what they think they can or should do, and just tap into their playful and fun inner child that they might have tucked away long ago, to have light bulb moments, to heal and to transform their lives.
That's awesome. Shazia, thanks again for being with us. Before we go, one thing I want to ask you, how can individuals and companies get in touch with you?
So you can actually email me at info@letsartaboutit.com. You can visit our website, letsartaboutit.com, /corporate. So that has all of our information on our work with businesses. Or you can actually just give me a call or send me a text. Like my number is 248-210-5118.
Love it. And also, are there any events or anything special that you want to mention before we part ways today?
So we have like a lot of specials, especially like at the beginning of the year, for like helping people renew their vision. So I think that especially like, around this like time of year, like helping people like it's still like the beginning of the year. So having like a sense of like purpose and sort of renewing our intentions, I think that can be something that's really popular, like these. So we can actually set that up like for your teams or your businesses. Maybe things like related to self-compassion or like self-love. We can focus on topics like that and create like an art therapy-based workshop to help with those. So those are a couple of popular themes like around this time of the year. But yes, and like we are always like, we actually have workshops that are posted on our website. So they're actually like, live workshops that you can attend individually, like almost like 4 to 5 days a week, every week. So if you're interested in joining those, just to sort of sample like what we do, you're welcome to do that. And yeah, so we're here to help and are excited to meet more people.
That's awesome. Shazia Siddiqi, CEO of Let's Art About It. Want to thank you for being here. Thank you for a great time, and look forward to more of our HR professionals being able to get in touch with you. So thank you for being on today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you all for being with us on the MISHRM podcast this afternoon. We want to thank you all for being here and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks and take care.